What is it about video game movies that makes them so bad? I mean, it's just really, like, what? Almost every single video game movie. Why? Hello everyone, welcome to my channel, Flytte Kartina. I'm talking about movies, like, all across my channel. If you don't know already, I've been posting it on social media. Nostalgia Wars has premiered. The first match has gone up, and if you want to check that out, the link to that is in the title cards and also in the description down below. Go check out Nostalgia Wars if you're even mildly interested in a internet hosted game show. So if you're interested in that, go check it out. The first match has aired. You can go and watch it. It's about, like, 20 minutes long, I think it is. Super fun, really intense. My heart was pounding the entire time. Next match that premieres next week is going to be in the East Division, and then the episode after that will be in the West Division again, and you might see me on there. I didn't know what I was getting into at the beginning, but I'm really glad that I'm a part of it, so go check it out, Nostalgia Wars on Nerdy Blurb TV. Today I want to do something a little bit different, and it's going to be a little bit weird, but it's okay. We're going to keep doing this. So right now I'm actually sitting in the trunk of my car and recording this as we speak, so it's a little bit different. I didn't have time to set up my whole, light setup and everything, and then my room is kind of out of commission because my room is my studio, if you hadn't noticed that already. It's kind of hilarious, but today we're going to do it podcast style and more of a video essay style, so I hope you enjoy this kind of video because this is what we're going for today. I was thinking about this recently because I had watched a couple of video game movies that had come out, in the era of video game movies, which is the early 2000s, and I was really disappointed in them. Not gonna lie, it didn't do it for me. I know the games are cool and everything, but it's just not the kind of movie that I wanted to watch, and none of the genres actually matched with the storyline, and it was really weird. So I wanted to dive a little bit deeper into analyzing what exactly it is that makes video game movies so bad. So it's gonna be weird, and you'll see some weird stuff on the screen as we go along. It's kind of hilarious how video game movies work. So let's list off a couple of video game movies that have released in theaters and across the world and the nation and, internationally. So there's the famous one, which is Mortal Kombat. There's Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. There's the Mario Brothers movie. Assassin's Creed came out a while ago. Detective Pikachu came out recently, as well as Sonic the Hedgehog. And the majority of the movies that I just listed, and if you look up on the internet, video game movies, the majority of them do not have very good ratings. So there's a problem there. So the thing is, video games do have stories. A lot of RPGs have storylines that attach to it, like Final Fantasy. If you play Final Fantasy, it's mostly a story-based game, but you also get to fight monsters. Or in the new Spider-Man PS5 game that just came out, you get to fight criminals and, fight crime as Spider-Man. This one is Miles Morales. It's pretty cool. I would love to play it if I had the money and the time, but I don't. But that also follows the storyline of Spider-Man. So why is it so bad to translate video games and their storylines into movies? So the biggest difference that I was able to come up with between video games and movie storylines is that, this is a really obvious point, and I hate to say it out loud, and make me sound really weird, but video games are an interactive experience. I know, shocker. It's just one of those things. Video games exist to be an interactive experience, so you get to sort of choose your own adventure. It's a lot of you controlling the pace of the story. In a video gameplay, if you're playing the game for the second or third time, if you know when another chapter break is going to start and you want to keep looking for items or whatever, like in a Lego video game, it's very possible to not move on to the next segment of the storyline and just keep collecting items or doing the little mini task that happens a lot. Like, I was playing Final Fantasy and I went on a fishing trip on accident, and I was stuck playing that mini game for a whole day. It was really embarrassing. But that's the biggest difference, is that video games exist so that you can control the pace and the gameplay of the actual storyline. If you don't want to move on to the next chapter, you have the option not to. The story structure in video games is actually very complex. It's really interesting how you can choose out of 4 different responses what to say to them. And obviously the responses are they're controlled, but you can choose what to respond, whereas in a movie it's all scripted. As the character, you have to follow the script. So video games have a more interactive gameplay. You can control the pace of the story, and you can have a choose your own adventure gameplay storyline idea. Obviously, the main plots of the storyline in a video game are going to be the same, but the thing about video games is that you can control how your character responds to things. It's not necessarily how the character would respond to things, but more like how you would respond to things. This is not every video game. A lot of video games have a more action-based style of playing and gameplay. So you're not actually responding to people, like choosing from a set of responses, but it does happen. I'm just kind of laying a general framework here. And so you would think that that would translate pretty well over to a movie. You just take a specific set of responses and the storyline and just convert it into movie form, right? Wrong. Video games are designed to be long-term gameplay. It's set up more like a TV series with a long payoff than a movie, which happens in 2 hours. Video games are typically designed so that you keep playing the game throughout the entirety of the story's run, and it keeps updating if it's one of those live updating games, and you just keep playing until you finish the end of the story, which should take you a couple months. Some people are professional gamers and they do it in a couple of weeks or days. It's intense and I can't believe it. But that's kind of like what the design of the storyline in a video game is. It's a very slow burn. Obviously you get payoffs here and there, but the majority of the storyline, the very major plot points that happen super slowly. You'll get stuck doing something for like a couple weeks, and then you can move on to the next city or to the next stage or to the next chapter of whatever game you're playing. So because video games are more in the style of actually a long, slow burn, they're interactive, and it's a more of a choose your own adventure sort of deal, that doesn't translate well to movies. But there are good video game movies, like Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, and movies like that are gems, and they really bring together a movie. But you know why that movie is so good? I'm using Scott Pilgrim vs. the World as an example. This happens a couple of times in other video games movies as well. But the reason why Scott Pilgrim vs. the World is such a good video game movie is because the actual source material for Scott Pilgrim vs. the World is a manga. And if you don't know what a manga is basically a Japanese comic book. But not in the sense of a comic book, it's more of a, it's anime in drawing form. It's weird. Like, most animes come from mangas, which are the comic books. For lack of a better term, the specific type of source material it is manga. I don't know how to explain it, but it's just one of those things that it just is. It's hard to translate into English. So, Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, let's use that as our great Hollywood video game movie, because it really is a great movie. But Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, the source material for that is a manga, and mangas are more traditional storytelling methods where you have a storyline and that's achieved at the end of the series. Most of the video game movies that exist are either things like Mortal Kombat, where they're fighting each other and that's the sole purpose. There's not really a whole bunch of story that goes along with it. It's just people fighting against each other, and you gain characters just so you can pit them against each other and fight to the death. And because video games are meant to be played over months at a time, a short 2-hour summary of the story, it's a lot harder to get that payoff with just 2 hours, what's meant to be played over months of gameplay. And so you take all of those points, put them together, and that doesn't make a good movie. Good movies are made off of a good storyline that can be told in 2 hours, and then the visuals and the actual, like, the cool choreography and the stunt and everything, that comes later. But first you need story. I personally love the idea of translating a video game into a storyline where you can just see it, but I think that's one of the problems too, is that it's heavily based off of the video game as the source material rather than inspired by. There's a very big difference between based off and inspired by in my mind. I don't know if this is actually true in Hollywood. I should probably do some research on this, but whatever. Based off means it's very heavily based off the source material. Whereas inspired by is more like adapting the book Rise of the Guardians or How to Train Your Dragon into the movie. The books are phenomenally different than the movie. The movie is great, the books are great, but they're very different, and that's the difference between inspired by and based off. So what can we do to fix this? What is the actual, like, solution to this problem that I've just posed to everyone on the internet and in the world and who is listening to this. What is the actual solution? So one solution is to change the words. Change from based off to inspired by. I'm not opposed to video game movies. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm actually saying is that video game movies have a place in the world. It's very cool to see your favorite characters personified by actors and actresses, but if you disrespect or just don't represent the characters as well as you think you are, then that's when you'll take the actual storyline of the video game and just tweak it a little bit. Maybe dramatize it, take out some really unnecessary or just things that aren't really relevant to the plot that you're trying to take, and just move forward with that. I get that there's going to be backlash. There's always going to be backlash whenever you take a very beloved video game series, comic book, hero, anything. When you take something like that and adapt it, you're going to get some sort of backlash or hate or negativity coming from your audiences that are hardcore fans. That's a risk that I think a lot of filmmakers, not filmmakers, but like studios are not willing to take, is that they won't risk the uncertainty of adapting something and just basically remake the entire video game storyline and dump it into 2 hours. I guess what I'm saying is to take risks with these movies. This market is actually it doesn't pay off very well. If you've seen the success that comes off of video game movies, it's really not that much. But if you take something and make it good, that's the best payoff that you can ever get creatively and even financially. Like Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, amazing. People love it. But I understand if you do something like Sonic the Hedgehog in the original version where they just demolish the character of Sonic. It was awful. So if you really like what I'm saying here, go ahead and subscribe to my channel. It really helps me out. It lets me know that you are listening and you are there for me whenever I post or upload a video. It's so much fun to talk with you guys down in the comments below. So the question of the week and the video is, what is your favorite video game to either play or whatever? Or if you don't play video games, what's your favorite video game movie? Let me know in the comments down below. I'll have my answer down there. I can't wait to see you down there. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. Have a great random Thursday, and I will see you on the other side of the screen.